All right, question number one, probably the most important one. Give me your name, the name of your entry, and where you're talking to us from.
Okay, Michael Maloof, Relentless, and I'm in Asheville, North Carolina.
I read your book, thoroughly enjoyed it. And in an action, adventure, and thriller competition, you've got to grab us up front, right?
Yeah.
And even if it's a flash forward or flashback, you did that so expertly to the point that in the first chapter, I thought the book was just going to all be about Nomad. I didn't know that the lead character hadn't been introduced. So did that opening come easy? Did you plan it like that? Or what was your thought on that opening? Which I don't want to.
That's a great question because the original opening of the book began a little more traditionally with following the logic that the first person the character reads is the hero in the book. So quite the gamble. But as I got it all down and I'm looking at the chapters and the sequences, I moved those first three chapters up front and I said, I want to open up with this murder and segue into Kate from there. It was a big gamble. I think it paid off.
It definitely paid off. It definitely paid off. You have a lot of action, a lot of fight scenes, a lot of sneaking around.
Yep.
How do you make sure that you make it easy for the reader to follow all that quick action that's going on?
Gosh, that's another challenge. A lot of it for me is watching the movie in my head, and if the movie skips, or as I did in the first few drafts, I did a little time travel. I'm like, well, wait a minute,
yeah,
that doesn't work. Let's go back and get that sequence down. I feel pretty strong in my dialogue and in my action scenes. And I felt like, kind of reading through them, and I had great beta readers and some great pre-release readers. I'm fortunate to have some folks that live and breathe, special forces and things. So it worked.
There's a lot of information about weaponry, technology, procedure. Where did you get all that knowledge from, or are you hiding something from all of us?
Yeah, no hiding. I had the second startup that we were involved in. My wife and I built two software companies. Was in network security, and so I went down that path deep and have some deep resources, in that path. So I was pretty comfortable with that aspect of it. And several years back, I was involved in a charity event, charity referred to as Troops Direct. I mentioned them in the back of the book. And that's where I got to spend some really quality time with, special forces, Green Berets, Navy SEALs, Marines, even Air Force medics. And I tapped all of those guys. I trained with them, and I've had a lot of other firearms training, but when you train with those guys, you realize that you really don't know anything.
Right. The theme in your book, one of the themes, is the personal information and security. Even when people think they're protected, like didn't Google just have an issue where they said, yeah, it's incognito or whatever, we're not doing anything, and then they found that they were selling it to people. So did you consciously say at the beginning, I want to write about that subject, or did you say, no, that just kind of happened as a vehicle that I wanted to use?
It happened as a vehicle, and I have that expertise. We were traveling once, and it was one of these group bike trips and having dinner, and the woman next to me was curious what we did, and I said, nah, we're in network security. Well, tell me about it, and I'll just scare you. And she dared me to scare her, and 10 minutes later, she said, I got to call my husband and tell him to unplug the computer.
Yeah, exactly. I unplug mine every night just to
it's a scary world. So I had that expertise, and as I was laying out, we always refer to it as Kate getting in trouble again. It was a natural.
There's a lot of intertwining plots. There's several.
Yeah.
But they're really easy to follow. But at the end, some of those get sewn together into the same purpose.
Yeah.
Did you again plan on that? Did that grow out of it, or did you say, "Yep," because I'm a plotter?
This is where are you familiar with John Truby?
No.
No. He, in trying to start down this path, I looked at, and I think it was one of your questions somewhere, but I looked at, Story Grid and Save the Cat, and I'm a software engineer at heart, right? And so structure appeals to me. I actually don't even remember how I came across John Truby, but I liked his book. He has a monthly, Truby story program that I became involved with. And I credit it with the success of book one. I've been to Thriller Fest and so on, and I've heard lots of authors say, it was book 3, 4, 5 where I really kind of hit my stride, where that were any good at all, or publishers weren't even interested in my first few books. That's what I feel happened with Relentless. And I will tell you that, through his process, we get to the point where we got about an 80 scene list. I must have revised that thing with John at least 4 months in a row.
Wow.
And he's like, "No, this isn't working. I don't believe that." And he just kept pushing back and pushing back. And finally, when we had that scene list, he's like, "Great, go write scenes."
Right.
That's why I think that worked.
What made you decide to enter the Adventure Writers Competition?
Well, the heart of it was, looking for how to find readers. But I will tell you, from the two software companies that we built, we were similar to an indie author. We're small, underfunded, competing against Cisco and Hewlett Packard and whoever else, the behemoths of the industry. And what we found was head-to-head competitions for how we got noticed. And so I was reading an article on Readsy, I think it was, that was a list of, contests that, independent authors can participate in. And I'm glad to see more and more opening to indies. And some didn't apply. Some might already missed deadlines. And I saw the Adventure Writers and went there and looked at it. And I looked how seriously you guys take it, and really who it's for. And I just love the format. But I was hesitant because, while I think of the book as a thriller, action adventure, I was concerned I really was going to be, competing against folks that were pure on action adventure, treasure hunters, just serious action adventure. Which is why when I got you made the top 10 list, I'm like, well, damn.
Yeah.
that was a shock. I celebrated that moment.
One more question for you. What did I not ask you that you wish I would have?
Oh gosh, this is pretty broad. Talk a little bit about my method. I will tell you that the way we came about this particular book was the character. My wife and I sitting at the kitchen table when she's if you've noticed my social media profile, it's Michael Go Right.
Yeah,
that's my wife.
Oh.
Michael, go right. So I love that. So I have this very supportive wife who's like, okay, shouldn't you be writing?
Yeah, because when I first saw that Michael Go Right, I went, what is that? And then I should have asked you, but I'm glad now I know. Now I know. So I wish you good luck.
Thank you.
I can tell you this, you're a very talented writer, and for your first book, that was a heck of a shot.
So, thank you.
Michael, welcome again.
Thank you. Thank you. One of these days, it'll be via an airplane.
I hope so. I hope so. So with that in mind, let me paint the picture.
Yes.
The Clyde Cussler Collector Society and the Adventure Writers Competition are all gathered in Las Vegas in October. The room is pretty crowded. All the finalists are there, but not you. Because Hurricane Helene kind of hit your town pretty hard. So we had you join via a Zoom call.
Yeah.
Let me ask you, what did it look like to you physically? What did you see? Because it was kind of goofy.
Goofy's probably a good word for it, and a little technically challenging. AT&T was down in the whole area, but we were lucky enough to have a Starlink connection, so that helped. Back we became the local internet cafe, which was kind of fun. People would show up every morning and bring their coffee and their dogs and whatever, and check in with family and friends. So there was a little latency there. The camera on the laptop, kind of towards the projection, and so I'm hearing more than I'm seeing.
Okay.
So I could see what was being put up on the screen. I will say it was great fun, watching the video, the book trailers, and hearing the author interviews and so on. So that was immersive as it could be, I think, on a little screen.
On a 1 to 10 scale, how surprised were you when you heard Dirk Kussler announce you?
Yeah, no, I'm sorry, I was a 12. I was so thrilled to make the finals, and I think, Peter, you and I have talked about that. That was a win. I knew I could take that to social media and I say I was a finalist,
Right.
and so to win was unbelievable.
Yeah. Who was the first person that you told?
I wondered if you could hear my wife or maybe my dogs, because they were kind of right there at my shoulder. I was trying to keep her off camera, but she screamed the minute she heard the win. So I wasn't sure if that made it through. She had been texting family in Southern California, so they were probably the next most. But you might recall we were actually heading across the street to the farmer who runs kind of this annual little community bonfire and hay rides for the kids. And with Hurricane Helene, he wanted to have the kids particularly get a little normalcy. So and interestingly enough, the hostess of that event had just finished reading Relentless.
Nice.
And they knew we originally had declined, saying we're going to Las Vegas. And so they when we said we're coming, what do you want us to bring? They knew that Las Vegas was out, so she was waiting literally on the steps as we came up the steps, and Michelle was like, "We won."
You won. What a great memory for you.
Yes, yeah. I was like, I should have brought books.
So did you think your chances were, like, while you're sitting there, did you go through the I'm not going to win, or I got this in the bag?
Yeah, I think, particularly, and even kind of leading up to it. I mean, knowing that we had a last year finalist, and watching the interviews and watching the blurbs, and like, these are good books. This is serious competition. And I take away from that that this is the real deal. I mean, this is a real event, seriously judged, by serious judges. So it just makes the win all that more great.
There's other books coming in the Kate Preacher series?
Yeah, number 2 is I'm kind of going through red lines right now. So working back and forth really kind of on a weekly basis here now with the editor. It's not coming out this year, which was my original hope, but that's on me.
Is there anything you'd like to say to people out there, maybe writers that are starting or thinking, should I keep on with writing? Should I enter competitions? Any advice to them, since now you're an award-winning author?
I think the one that jumps to mind is you're never too old to start. I'm not a young man. I have wanted to write since I was very young. Always knew I would, and unfortunately married to a lovely woman, 38 years now, who said, "Michael, go write."
Michael, go write, which is your tag, right?
Yes.
That is. Well, I am so happy that you won. You were very worthy of it. You can't enter ever again in this competition. We only allow you to win once.